I do want to preface this by saying that I do have a green card now. Yes, I do have a green card, and that I am not here illegally, which is why it's been really hard for me to film this video. Okay, I do have my green card now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my day 2 of my YouTube journey. This video is very hard for me to make, and actually, in fact, it took me longer to try to film this video than I thought I was going to take. It's taking me longer than I thought, and that's because this video is very personal and it's very specific to my story as an immigrant. Especially, I think it's very unique to me as a Samoan person coming from Western Samoa, and I feel like it's a big part of my journey growing up, and so it's been really hard for me to put all of my life experience into one video without stressing myself out and without overwhelming myself and making the video longer than it needs to be. So I have decided just to talk about a few things that I feel like it encompasses my journey, and I think it might be relatable to other people who also immigrated, specifically immigrated to the United States of America. Okay, so I'm going to break this into a few chapters so that you all can understand the journey. So yes, my journey begins in why we left Samoa in the first place to come to America. First of all, I think I loved growing up in the islands, and I think me and my family were pretty well off. I grew up well off in my village, and I had friends that had less than what I had, and I was very blessed to be in growing up in the island and to be living in the island. But the island is very limited of opportunities because it is a dot on the map, so things are very limited, and I think that was one of the reasons why me and my family decided to leave Samoa. And I left when I was 13, so I was literally in middle school, but we call it primary school back in Samoa. And yeah, I left when I was 13. Part of it was because it was my parents' plan for us to move here. My sister was born in American Samoa, and my mom always had this plan of coming to America. I think she's been to America when she was younger. So coming here was something that she's like, oh, it was always intended for us as a family to come. So both my parents had plans for us to come here, me and my two siblings. And I think growing up too, one of the biggest things that I heard growing up was America was the land of the milk and honey. I never knew. I think I heard about that phrase in the Bible. I think it's from the Bible, but I feel like that was an impression that I got as someone that was growing up in the island, and I think that was kind of the narrative that America was that they were the land of the milk and honey. So you have to try and taste the honey. Anyways, so moving on, we moved here, and chapter 2 is what I found. Chapter 2 is coming here. I guess what I found coming here in the US is that we had to start from scratch, everything from scratch. I moved here and I lived with my family that was already here, my auntie and my cousins. We all lived in one house. It was a big house, but that's what happened. We moved here and we felt like starting from scratch. Back in Ireland, I grew up in my own house, in my own land, my dad's land. My dad, my grandparents, and everybody. We had a land that lands actually where we grew plants and grew crops, had a farm. And then coming here is starting from scratch, which is finding our own apartment and then our own car. So that was something that I think was what I had to go through. And I think it was a big culture shock for me because coming to America, it's huge. I was not expecting all the big buildings, the massive roads, the landscape, and the different diversity that exists in America. That was a big culture shock to me that I didn't realize. And I also found that I was very limited I have limited access to certain things because of my immigration status. It takes a while for us to develop here in the US and to live here for a while before the immigration system or before just the policies and the law decides that you are now an American. So due to that, I had very limited access because basically I was treated like I was a tourist for the first couple of years. And then seeking friendship and belonging was something that I also found interesting that I had to think about, or I went through throughout the whole process of being an immigrant. And I had friends back home coming here, I have to make new friends again and try to find where I belong. And also because I didn't have a lot of Samoan friends I can speak Samoan to, there wasn't a lot of Samoans around me. So, yep, that's basically what happened. Chapter 3 is who I became over the years. So I've lived in America for half of my life now. I came here when I was 13, I'm now 30. So if you do the math, how many years is that? And I think I have become Americanized over time, especially because I'm surrounded by a lot of American culture and way of thinking and like way of doing things. That's one thing I feel like I became more Americanized. I also became really blessed over the year with a lot of opportunities. I got to go to college, I got to graduate, I got to volunteer places, I got to have a job, have a car. So like, I think growing up in America has definitely blessed me a lot because if I grew up in the islands, like I said, limited opportunities, but also, yes, I think I would have definitely had preferred to live in the US, and I feel like I've been blessed more now that I'm here. Um, yeah, and also I think independence was something that I became when in America, learning independence at a very young age because in my cultural, like growing up in Samoa, I think being independent was something that's not very, because we're very community focused, and like everybody knows each other, so it's like unless you're like super like okay, I've noticed that since I went back, I've noticed that like people that are living out of Samoa, like they're living in New Zealand or Australia, or like grew up there, I think they're more independent when they go to Samoa because they seem more like independent, you know? Not very like off-putting. Also, like independence was a big thing that I learned here in America. But just like because of how big the world is here, you can't really trust anyone, and like yeah, I just learned to be independent growing up here. Yeah. Um, I think I'm gonna add one more point to this, like who I became living in America. I think another thing was that I don't know. I also became more like I feel like my dreams and goals are more achievable. Not that I think I wouldn't be able to achieve them back in Samoa, but I think because I've been introduced to America and the opportunities that America offers, I think I've been able to see myself more in those opportunities that I'm willing to dream bigger and be better or work on myself and be better myself. So that's a big thing I think I became is like knowing how to work on myself, being independent and like growing my own knowledge and in my own personal development. Chapter 4, what no one talks about. The elephant in the room. I think this is different for everyone. And I speak only for myself with this, but I think that the reality check is I think for a long period of time I didn't feel like I truly belong in America. Yeah, I think the reality is like you got imposter syndrome here and there because like you are in spaces where like you don't see yourself in and you're not used to seeing yourself in those spaces that you're like, do I even belong here? And also like the people around, they might have things in common that you don't have in common with them, and you're like, well, I'm very unique and I'm very not from like that experience, so like should I even be here? So I feel like that was a big thing that I had to overcome, was like constantly feeling like, oh my gosh, like I don't belong here. Like there's people here that I don't think that are way smarter than me, or like there's people here that are like they do things a certain way that looks better than what I'm doing. So yeah, I definitely have to get better at not comparing myself to other people because that's something that I like learned from being here. And I think I don't know if it's like only in America that happens, but that's just my personal experience with something that like was a big reality check for me. Another big thing I feel like nobody talks about, or at least I think a few people I've noticed that are also immigrant have talked about this, but questioning my identity. I think, yeah, I definitely think growing up here made me question my identity because like I grew up in the island, so like I'm used to doing things the island way, and then I come here and it's a different way of doing things. So yeah, I'm like constantly going through like, oh, like am I being like too fob, which is like I'm like fob, like I don't have good English, or like am I too American because I speak too good English, you know, like there's that like line where you're like constantly questioning if you're like how do you upkeep both of your identity, because I'm American, I'm Samoan, but I'm also part Chinese, but like I also live in America, so I'm also American, you know? So yeah, I think that was a big reality check. It's just like realizing that like this is part of me, and that it is something that makes me unique is my identities. Other mindset where I'm thinking about like, you know, like the only identity that should matter is that you're a child of God, or you're like a good person, a disciple of Christ, which I like to think about it that way. But there are certain identities where like, well, like I'm Pacific Islander, I speak Samoan because my ancestors are Samoan, my ancestors are Chinese, so like constantly think about like those are my identity as a Samoan, but also like I live here and there aren't any areas that celebrate those identities, so it's more increasingly celebrated in America, but growing up it wasn't. So that was a big part of my journey. Another reality check is how long the process is for getting your papers. I think every immigrant I know struggles with this. Like, we have to pay. Well, I didn't, but my mom and my dad had to pay so much money, and my older sister had to pay so much money to the lawyer so that we can get our papers, which is like, I think it's like 10,000 or more just to get a lawyer, and then paying for the citizenship, and then me paying for the green card, and then having to wait 5 years and then to be able to get my citizenship, and I have to pay more money for that. I think it's like around 700, and then on top of that, there's like an application form that you fill out. It's very time consuming, and yeah, I think that's a big reality check moving here in America, is that you have to do your research on like how long things take, and if you're gonna do it, like, to make sure it's gonna take that long, and to fill your time with something else, or just to be patient and keep going. The reality that the racism does exist and privilege does exist. So yeah, just kind of be aware that that's a thing that happens, and to try to find that ways where you can make ends meet, but staying true to who you are and being grateful for what you have, because racism does exist in the workplace and in everywhere else in America. It's like, I think everybody knows this, but it's like something that you have to constantly remind yourself to be patient, and if it needs to be speaking up, you do need to speak up, but I'm grateful that I live in a place that like is pretty not it's pretty nice. People are really nice here. Then there's not a lot of racism that I've experienced, but there are these microaggressions that I've heard and experienced over time. So it's one of those things where like it does fuel me up a little bit, but at the end of the day, I just forget about it and move on, because I don't think it's worth picking a fight and then losing. Yeah, I don't know. My main takeaway from this video, if you take anything away from this video, it's really short and sweet. Your story matters, and you do belong, and you do not give up on your goals and your goals in your life. Your story matters, you belong, and don't give up on your goals in your life. So yeah, I leave that with you, and I hope to see you in the next video, because it's gonna be a good one. Bye.